$100,000 for each of the following departments to utilize for the purpose of overtime, associated benefits, and other expenditures. The intent is to address human trafficking, DWI enforcement, and others that relate to the rise in crime as a result of border insecurities. Departments authorized to utilize this funding. Their discretion is the Sheriff's Department, all 5 constables, and the District Attorney's Office. Would like to utilize the fund that the balance currently committed to law enforcement and corrections, and the funds would be expended. You'd have a year to use these funds. Recently, Judge, we discussed, we're all aware of the problems that we're facing on the border down there, and it seems to be a rise in crime rate. You brought it up here recently. We discussed that about how we could possibly assist our neighbors in that area, and I think the sheriff and possibly the county attorney are still looking at avenues to do that. After that, I met with Constable Hayden or visited with them in regards what can we do here to enhance or to help with the rise in crime that we're seeing in our area. Certainly, if you watch any news media or TV to the south, we've noticed the way they're doing things down there is not the way that we're doing things here in Montgomery County. There's over 100 people out on bond that have committed violent crimes to the south of us. And my intent and hope here was, if you were beyond the borders of Montgomery County or within, and you were interested or contemplating committing crimes on the good folks here in Montgomery County, if we approve this today, there's going to be additional eyes on you. And we're just simply not going to tolerate that. We have wonderful law enforcement here, and I certainly, for one, appreciate the great job that you're doing. And we want to put this out there for you if you want to utilize it for overtime expenditures and to put more eyes out and about to keep us safe here. Crime Stoppers had a video on it the other day that goes and speaks well of our district attorney's office and our great judges that we have here in our law enforcement, that we are a little bit tougher up here. If you want to commit crimes against our people, we're simply not going to tolerate it. And the second part of it was to show you, and my intent was to show you and our law enforcement departments up here that, hey, we are aware of what you're doing, we are aware that you're working hard, and we have your back, and we do appreciate the efforts that all of you guys put forth and working hard to make Montgomery County what it is, because all the wonderful things that we enjoy here, the good jobs, the places of worship, the recreation, our good schools, all of those things, you must have good law enforcement. You must be able to reasonably believe that you're going to arrive home safe today. And those folks in all those areas work very hard to help make that happen. And hopefully we can pass this thing today and make it even better than it already is. So one other thing, I would personally like to see these funds. It's not to go out and buy new vehicles. We've already allowed for that and other things. It would be for more patrol, whether it's ICAC investigation, anything that would work to keep us safe here. There was talk about the comp time. If you could touch on that, please.
Sure. So the way that we would want to make sure that these funds are used is we would set them up in a project, and those each of these entities, the law enforcement agencies, would receive a project code, and they would charge any overtime to that code. What we're asking is that they not to use comp time and then later try to use these funds to pay down that comp time. That is not what we're asking for. We want the intent of this is that we pay the overtime at the overtime rate that each of those deputies get. It's not a special, it's not, it's a one-of-a-kind rate for that deputy when you consider all of their, pay variables. The other thing is that we are not asking, we do not want new positions to come out of this, okay? These are existing positions for existing, departments. There's no new positions being added with the 200,000 because it only lasts 1 calendar year. The project is set up from today until 1 year from now, and the project will expire. Will not allow you to enter any time after that, and we'll make sure that we give the departments the corresponding pay period along with any of that. And then also that just like they'll be able to track those expenditures in Infor and see where they're at each time.
Commissioner, you resolution that was going to deal with the issues of unlawful entrance into the country coming up in our direction. The issues that were mentioned were drugs, disease, human trafficking, a number of things that you mentioned. We then had this emergency meeting, of which we also all agreed and voted on that we would do some research on this and where we would get the funding from it and really what was going on down. Our district attorney, Brett Ligon, sent his chief deputy down there to the border for 2 days and came back and gave us really valuable information about what's really been going on. And so with that in mind, as we talked about this, as we previously talked about it, the discussion was that, hey, we need the possibility of help right here. And I think what the commissioner has done here is he's given us a way to do what we were trying to do initially, what we kind of matriculated through, what we have verified by our district attorney, and with you talking about the issue of making it a 1-year issue, and that would be used specifically for these things. My only request is I think that the sheriff has got, with all his guys, that if we treat everybody the same, you have at least $500,000, and we have not included the fire marshal in this, who is on these calls as well. So it would be the addition of the 200,000 for each of the constables, 500,000 for the sheriff, and 200,000 for the fire marshal. And we have a fund source to do it, public safety, that we have allocated. You're right, it's there to be able to do it. That's all. And so, go ahead.
No, you're great. That was a nice summary. But Brett, the question I was going to ask you is, if we allocate $500,000 to the sheriff and $1 million to the constables, is $200,000 going to be enough for you to stay up with the increase that you're going to see as well as COVID? Because what I'm asking is, I think we should give you more funds so you can prosecute these things as quickly as possible, or give you a not to exceed amount.
So first, because everybody's been doing quite a bit of explaining, indicate where these funds are from. This is not from fund balance. These are reclassified funds. This is money that was already here that's merely been reclassified. So I don't want anybody to think that there's a money grab going on. The problem is as sophisticated as you think, right? So there's a border surge within illegal immigration. We know that it's a federal issue, but it's fallen to the state. What a lot of people don't realize is that the troop strength within Montgomery County is a finite resource. When I say troop strength, law enforcement, classified peace officers, our numbers are only about 1,000 peace officers. That includes our largest agency, Montgomery County Sheriff's Department, to our smallest agency, Cut and Shoot. So all those, that includes the ISD, PDs, and everything else. The troop strength, DPS troop strength, is between 80 and 100. What a lot of people don't realize, and Constable Hayden was the first one that actually kind of picked up on this, so some of this is, I have to give a lot of credit to Constable Hayden. When you're sending 40 and 50 DPS troopers out of Montgomery County, those numbers were allocated to Montgomery County based upon the amount of crime, based upon the amount of calls for service, based upon our population, right? So the state of Texas says, hey, we pay state taxes, we're gonna get this many troopers. But those troopers are not in Montgomery County. It doesn't mean that crime goes away. It doesn't mean that calls for service are reduced. And so what you have is either more officers having to do more work, which is where your overtime possibilities come in. So Constable Hayden recognizes it, Sheriff Henderson recognizes it, like, okay, well, first off, how do you help the border by helping Montgomery County? And I kept telling you, yeah, I'm a state official, but I'm a Montgomery County DA first and foremost. And when I talk about border security, my border is south of Rayford Sawdust, right? Because a lot of the problems that we deal with are Montgomery County problems. I did have First Assistant Mike Hawley go down there. I mean, their problems are real, there's no doubt about it. They don't have the infrastructure to accept the help that we'd be able to provide. But it doesn't mean that we're not losing law enforcement here. And so if you're talking 100,000, or if you're talking 1,000 cops, now you got to think of shift work. Really, you only have a third of that that's available at any one time. And then you take half of DPS out of it, and I know that kind of sounds like a little bit of agony, right? But it has a huge impact of what goes on. Constable Hayden's thought and Sheriff Henderson's thought is, okay, when we backfill the loss, that's how we support DPS. Because DPS's work doesn't go away, it's still here, the crime is still here, the crime is going undetected, and if it's undetected, then it's unprosecuted as well. So Commissioner Metz came up with the thought of, hey, look, how do we help Montgomery County and how do we help down south? As well as the initiatives that I discussed with you in talking to the county attorney in Val Verde, talking to the district attorney in Val Verde, talking to DPS, National Guard, those types of deals. They still have a mission for us. So first off, I want to make sure that people know that we're not taking money out of general funds. Number two, there's a very real need to backfill these positions. Number three, we would do this work anyway, James, Commissioner. When law enforcement's out there, we're going to respond. We're going to respond whether it's through intake. This allows us to keep pace with what law enforcement, with our patrol officers are doing through the same opportunities for the district attorney's office, whether it's enhanced intake, whether it's human smuggling, whether it's human trafficking efforts, all those types of deals. It's going to allow us to stay competitive. Now, with that said, you know, I'm going to do the work anyway. Problem with our vast majority of ours, and one of the things I kept telling you and I told Director McCraw was, look, I've got more at the DA's office. We got more prosecutors willing to go down there and chew on something than I do investigators. Only 20 police officers work for me. So we're going to do it. I want to make sure that there would be an opportunity for exempt employees, and we did.
We were just talking about that.
I want to make sure we discuss that.
So we need an exception to the HR policy, which allows, they already have one for intake, but there are investigators and oversight and people that our district attorney would be sending out to the scene that would be exempt. So we're going to need an exception on this project to allow exempt employees to get paid overtime or at these different project code rates.
No,
Employees for all of the law enforcement departments?
That would be up to you.
It would be up to you. I mean, this is basically your program. We just need to know how to implement it.
And just to remind you, Commissioner, in some of the constables' offices, the lieutenants are still non-exempt and some of them are exempt. Just depends on each constable.
And the sheriff's office is
Sheriff's office is exempt.
exempt.
in my
So if they
conversation, excuse me,
No, so we would want to set up this program and in this motion to, clearly delineate whether or not you want to pay overtime to exempt employees. I would think that, given the purpose of this, that it would be appropriate.
in my constable, Hayden brought up about backfilling for those guys in some of the counties doing that. So proceed.
That was the extent of it. I'm ready to answer any questions. I did want to say that the sheriff said I look good today. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's very pretty, buying bigger suits.
He said, "Are you losing weight?" I said, "No, it's an optical illusion. I'm buying bigger suits." So,
He actually said that.
yeah.
Now, only thing I wanted to say was as far as exempt employees go, lieutenants and above are the exempt employees that we have. But the exemption that I would like to see is the exemption from the 80-hour rule. If you've got a holiday that falls in that pay period, we do that in the Woodlands. So whenever we work overtime there, we've got 1 million plus overtime that we work a year. It would just be charged to the project code, paid the time and a half rate when you're working on this project.
Didn't we just do that with?
Can we do
with
that now?
OEM? Let me excuse me a
We
second.
can, we do.
Okay, proceed. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Melanie, can we do all this that we're talking about?
The accountants don't like it evidently, but the community.
Finance isn't like it at all, just to make sure. That's
Do
on
what now?
record. Finance is not in favor of that, but it's really up to the Commissioner's Court.
I'm just saying, in case you do, I mean,
You're
It
looking
can be
at
done in the
DOLs.
system, yes, sir.
What'd you
at
say?
$5 million.
It can be done in the system.
We have our finance department. The burden won't be on the rest of the county. We'll do that internally. We're used to doing it with the Woodlands contract. So that's a large portion of your burden that'll be removed when we can do it. But it becomes a huge staffing problem when you've got somebody who's really good at working some of these enforcement things. They may have a special skill set that they bring to the table. We want them working on this. They know about human smuggling. They're good at DWI. But they took a vacation. So they're not going to want to work it because they're not going to get paid.
I'm sensitive to that, but my department has that same issue all the time. Every time it rains and we have to go out and spend 3 or 4 hours out in the middle of the night, they're not getting overtime if they were on vacation.
And
you know what I mean? I just don't want
But
to.
it's just for a special project code.
And
That's
I
the only
think-
time that we would do it is when the court tells us we can do it for a special project code, and this would fit perfectly with that.
And I think Amy thinks from a DOL perspective.
It's completely up to you.
Is there not an opinion?
It's it is not a legal issue at this point. It is a practical and logistical issue.
How
So,
much of a burden is it gonna,
it is
be
every-
truthful, how much of a burden is it gonna put if we do that? No wrong answer here, just the truth.
I mean, 4 hours charged to Xcode.
So long as, I work with the payroll admins in each office to make sure that they're watching it, it can be done. I will tell you that we're having some issues with project codes coding correctly on the finance side. And so I am a little bit more concerned about that from that angle.
Let me ask you.
My intent was not to make this complicated.
Well,
It was to.
the point is, it can be done, and the end result of what we're trying to do here is law enforcement and for the benefit of Montgomery County. Difficult times, crisis times demand difficult crisis
I think if
actions.
y'all need it, y'all do it.
Well, let me throw another factor in there too. Judge, you brought up the border, actually going physically to the border.
Yeah.
We're still working with the state on coordinating that effort. That is still a go, as far as we
Yes.
know. So we're gonna be sending jailers and certified peace officer jailers down to the border to do this processing. What rates are they gonna be paid? I mean, I'm not gonna wanna go down there and live in a man camp and work at a straight rate. I mean, I'm not gonna get a whole lot of people that are gonna sign up, saying, sure, I'll work a week, but, you know, I may have a vacation day or something like that in there. We're gonna have some issues. So if I can have a project code, so when they go down there and they're working that, whether they work 4 hours or 96 hours, they know what that rate is gonna be.
Yeah, but as it relates to this particular item on the agenda, if we
Well,
can
that's
go
what I
back
will be
to.
spending my money for.
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of my money is going to be for the border crisis, and that border crisis is in Valverde County.
Got it, so part of your $200,000 to $500,000.
$500,000.
I got you, I got you. Okay,
Because they're asking, I've got a lot of interest,
It's
we've
noticed
got
at his
sign-ups,
discretion.
we've got a lot of interest, but the first question is, what am I gonna get paid and where am I gonna be living?
I would like to see that the exempt employees get paid, and I'd like to see if there's a vacation or a holiday, whatever, they get paid to. That's what I've always
if
wanted.
we can have our,
I've always wanted to do that.
Judges,
Jason's been working on
Then when you're
this.
gonna make a motion to do that for everybody permanently?
I'd love to see it, but
Do it.
Do I hear a second?
No, that's not noticed.
Okay, so I want to make that motion for this project.
Yes.
That's what I want to do.
Yes.
All right, do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, now, there's discussion.
as the sheriff brought up the other point, it is noticed at their discretion, so how he spends the money that you authorize, whether it be in Valverde County or here, is at his discretion, so it's
Yeah,
perfectly.
the department's authorized to utilize this funding at their discretion.
Yes.
And we
It's just-
On
we
the
need to
sheriff's
make sure we have the
department. Yeah.
amounts
Yeah, can we
correct.
confirm that?
Can we?
All right,
Yes.
we have a
it down.
motion.
What is it, how much to each person?
I would like to clarify, since we don't have a written motion here, we need to be really specific so that our auditor and our treasurer and our budget officer can implement exactly what it is that you want to happen. Especially since it's effective today. So what,
Commissioner Metz?
Haven't moved on the original motion. So I guess it'd be appropriate to do that now.
And Commissioner,
Okay.
can we get the departments listed and the amounts first? Can we do that?
yeah, Sheriff's
Yes.
Office, you want to do 500,000 in your motion, Commissioner Metz? It's your motion.
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
There's money in the fund to do that.
And then each of-
And the 200 for fire marshal.
Yeah, so, and then each of the constables stay with the 200,000.
What about you?
I do believe,
You do or you?
We're throwing lawyers at the problem. I mean,
Rarely ever do you get to say, they give me some more.
Why don't we at least
So
go
they-
300,000
I-
to use just to,
I can always, we're gonna do, what, 200,000 is more than appropriate. for
Okay.
The amount of staff that I would have, that I could assign for this, because we still have a backlog from COVID that we're working through the courts, right? So we're going to, that's our priority right now. Everything else we're going to be doing is in response to law enforcement for additional efforts. So, you know, I don't want to give horse in the mouth for $200,000. I mean, more than enough to match the efforts of law enforcement. We're going to try to double my intake sign-ups.
So-
Thank you.
You
Thank you.
always pay your way, Mr. Luke, and you always do your part, and I appreciate it.
Fire marshal.
I'm good with that.
So you have the
So fire-
constables, Sheriff at
500,000,
500.
500,000 for the sheriff,
And
all the
200.
constables 200,000, fire marshal for 200,000, and the district attorney for 200,000. Is that correct?
That work for you, Sheriff?
Yes, sir, thank you.
And those are amounts not to exceed, and everybody will be using a special project code, and exempt employees will be eligible to receive overtime. And we have an exception for law enforcement for the 80-hour rule.
Yes.
Okay.
There's no comp time, no payouts of comp time.
Okay, and for the fire marshal, there are 2 departments currently set up. So can we clarify that that is for investigations or not inspections, correct? Okay. Investigations, not inspections. And then also, can we also determine when we are going to be doing that? Can we start it with the next payroll period,
Please.
please?
Okay, and then.
Would that would be
and then it's-
effective at the beginning of the next payroll period,
Then it
approved today?
ends the calendar year from that payroll period,
And it
1
would-
year out.
It would end 1 calendar year from the beginning of the next payroll period.
Can they give raises with this money?
And can you give raises with this money?
No.
No,
No raises, no purchases of any kind, this is purely.
So it does
It's
say,
overtime.
it does say,
At the discretion.
in other expenditures at the discretion. So you're giving the discretion to the elected officials and to the fire marshal. And it would be other expenditures, and some of the things that I believe were raised were if they needed additional testing kits or supplies or things like that. Do you want to include that in this?
Yeah, it would. Yeah.
And it will not include comp time. A pay down of currently owed comp time, is that correct?
no.
Okay.
July
Not
20,
be coding this project to comp time at all.
effective July 24th, 2021 to July 23rd, 2022.
All right, we have a motion, and we have a second. Who seconded that? Good, Commissioner Nowak. Any more discussion?
One more thing, special thank you to you, Constable Hayden, for all your efforts here. Appreciate your hard work in precinct 4, and all that you do for us, as well as you, Brett Ligon, for your insight and your help in putting this together, and all that your team, and you as well, Sheriff, for all you, your department, and all others to keep us safe. We all want to go home at the end of the day as a state, and you guys help make that happen, and it sends a message to others beyond Montgomery County that, hey, we care about law enforcement, we care about each other up here, and we want to be safe. Don't come here with other ideas. Thank you all very much for your input. and for your-
All right, we need to vote.
Well, thank you and your staff for putting this together and working hard with all the elected officials. And Judge, really all this kind of goes back to your
Absolutely.
original idea to let's work together to do something. So thank both of you, man, for.
Couldn't do it without everybody here agreeing.
It's a special thank you to you as well, Judge.
Thank you. All right.
And our court.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Thank you.
Commissioner, tell me a little bit about this funding for the sheriff for law enforcement. Where did you come up with the idea, and how's it going to help?
Well, Constable Aiden and I discussed this. You know, for some time back when our DPS working the border, as they're still doing down there now with the crisis there, it left a vacuum here to work accidents, so it put an additional burden on our sheriff's department as well as the constable's department. And we had funding from reclassified funds from the original CARES Act, and after visiting with Constable Hayden and going over different scenarios and ideas to help enhance as crime rises around us, we wanted to be able to support our law enforcement and to give them opportunities for overtime to help keep us safe here in Montgomery County. And those, as I stated earlier, those that might be contemplating in other areas to arriving in Montgomery County and being involved in criminal activity, that there's going to be eyes on you. We're going to have additional law enforcement here out and about, and to keep our citizens safe, as well as our district attorney's office and our good judges in the courts to prosecute any offenses that may happen. We just wanted to send a message to those folks and send a message to our law enforcement here that we love you and we love the job you're doing. We want you to continue to work hard to keep us safe, and these funds will help do that. It's not coming out of these are reclassified funds. This is not out of our regular budget. This stuff has been reclassified just for these types of cases. And I really appreciate the support of the county judge, the entire court today, Constable Hayden, District Attorney's Office, and our Sheriff Rand Harrison for their help and their support here and the great job that they continue to do here in Montgomery County.
All right. Constable Hayden, how is this extra $200,000 going to help you that Commissioners approved today?
Well, it's going to allow us to put programs in effect to enforce more crime prevention in East Montgomery County. It'll allow us to put more boots on the ground, and hopefully we can have programs to combat human trafficking, drinking and driving, and other various programs.
What are you seeing the most of increase right now in East County?
We're just seeing an increase in DWIs. Of course, we border the city of Houston, and they're having an increased crime rate there. And we want to do everything we can here in Montgomery County to keep that from coming up the 59 corridor into Precinct 4.
Sheriff, how is this $200,000 or this $500,000 actually going to help y'all with the enforcement in Montgomery County?
Well, thank you to the court for the $500,000 to begin with. There have been some discussion about some border initiatives and some reclassified CARES Act funds that were reclassified public safety funds. So specifically earmarking those and returning those to law enforcement is greatly appreciated by us, and I really thank you to the court for stepping up and doing what they did. But there's been a lot of deployments, particularly of DPS troopers, so we'll be using that locally to backfill some of that vacancy. And we'll be using the overtime funds to do that locally. But I imagine the lion's share, once we get the logistics worked out, will be used on the border. We plan to answer the governor's call for jailers, or certified jailers, to go help border counties who are struggling with processing inmates. So the lion's share of our funding will likely be used to pay staff salaries and incidentals that go along with a border deployment. So that's answers the governor's call. It helps our state, it helps our country to secure those borders, and it may even, through a trickle-down effect, help crime rates here locally in Montgomery County.
I've seen quite a few of the officers there. They're staying busier than heck right now. I mean, they're just covered in it. It seems like call after call after call. Do you see any slowdown in this, or adding officers? What are you looking at there?
Well, and you make a good observation that we're really busy, but we're also fully staffed.
Yeah.
So we have better staff than we've ever had. A lot of the communities that are struggling with some of the defund the police movements, some of those officers have decided to relocate to a more friendly, more conservative environment. They found that here in Montgomery County, where they have the support of their community, where they're beloved and appreciated by their community. And that helps with our retention, that helps with our hiring, so our numbers have gone up exponentially with our recruiting efforts. So we are busier than we've ever been, but we're also better staffed than we've ever been. So it's a twofold problem. We are going to have to look to start adding staff in the future, which is very expensive, but it's something that the court realizes is coming, and so they're going to have to address that during budget hearings.
Philip Cash.
Okay, go ahead.
Constable Philip Cash, Montgomery County Precinct 1.
Tell me what you got, how this funding is going to help you.
Well, today we got awarded some funding, overtime funding from the Commissioner's Court, and it'll be put to use properly in our precinct. We're going to enforce our traffic. We have a lot of issues with traffic in our precinct. A lot of our troopers are on the border, so we'll enhance the traffic on our freeways and our side roads and Highway 105. We'll also increase our patrol on Lake Conroe. We're having a lot of issues on the lake. This summertime, like we do every summer, a lot of boater traffic. We're trying to keep our alcohol BWIs to a minimum on the lake, so this will give us some more patrol coverage to work on that problem and kind of keep our lake safe. We're also going to enhance some more what we do with our crisis intervention team throughout the whole county. It will affect the whole county, not just our precinct. But it'll be good to be put to good use, and will be great for our community.
What are you seeing on the roads? I mean, the speeds and everything else lately. Been up there quite a bit.
Yeah, we're seeing, I-45 has opened up north of us in Walker County. It's a nice big highway, but when you come into Montgomery County from Walker County, the speed limit drops to 65 miles an hour. We're seeing average speeds between 80 and 100 miles an hour coming southbound, and then northbound from about League Line to the county line going into Walker County, the same issue. We have a lot of people driving excess of 80 miles an hour on I-45. It's a 65 mile an hour highway. It's also one of the most dangerous highways. If you come in the county, they have signs at both ends. It's one of the most dangerous pieces of highway in the state of Texas. So we work really hard already on that with some other programs we're working, but we'll increase that also.